How's it going, guys? Motor City Miner here, coming up you with another update on my KS2. As you saw in my prior video, the Frankenbeast is dead. Long live the Frankenbeast. PSU bursting the flames in quite spectacular fashion. I don't really. Again, it's kind of funny with all the things I did to this that the PSU was just faulty, and that was the issue. I was pulling well under the 3,300 watts that it's rated for. Um, but yeah, I don't have another one of those PSUs, so I'm going to actually swap back to the 2,400 watt PSU that I was previously running on my KS2. Uh, Still more than the 2,000 watt stock, so which gets me to kind of what I'm thinking here. So obviously I can't run 2,700 watts on this PSU. It will also explode. Um, so I think it's time to decommission the Frankenbeast. It was a fun experiment while it lasted. But this experiment was, thought of back in early November, which was well before PBFarmers ever planned a release, or at least publicly, for overclocking software. So I designed this with T-Swift overclocks in mind, which are, you set it and forget it. Like, you can't adjust anything. So it's all based on, you know, certain, like, you can't change the frequencies, and therefore you can't change the power draw or anything. Which is why at the time when I thought of this and started buying all the pieces for it, I went the 2 KS1 board route. But now that PBFarmers has been out for a little over a month, month and a half, I figured, instead of wasting more money on another 3,300 watt PSU, I'll just put this 2,400 watt PSU or 2,500 watt, can't remember, 2,500 watt. I think its output though is only 2,400. Yeah, so the 25 is just the rating. So 2,400 is the max. But with PBFarmers overclock software, you can at least like tweak frequencies up and down, and therefore adjust your power draw. So although the T-Swift KS2 overclocks are capped at because of the factory 2,000 watt PSU. By switching to PBFarmers on my KS2 control board, which I still have in one of those boxes, I should be able to at least get a little more hash rate out of this unit. Not as much as my 3.1 terahash version, most likely at 3,300 watts, or at 2,700 watts, because that's not possible. But essentially, yeah, I'm gonna kind of see what this upgrade to a 2,500 watt with PBFarmers overclock software, what I can actually get out of this. It should be more than the 1.5 that is the T-Swift overclock. But yeah, we're going to disassemble this, put it back to essentially stock, minus the slightly upgraded PSU, just because the original PSU died like almost immediately upon turning it on. So I'm going to get this apart, decommission him, no more Frankenbeast, and yeah, he'll have all his casing components back on, and then we'll start overclocking on the computer. Yeah, there it is, guys. Mostly back to stock. Looks so boring, except for still got the new PSU, which doesn't quite fit perfectly, but it at least is stable in there. And like I said, with 2,500 watts, we should be able to at least using PBFarmers overclock be able to push the limits of what's capable with the KS2, not to the 3 terahash, but hopefully considerably higher than the 2.5 terahash at 1,800 watts that the T-Swift overclock can do. I don't really know what to expect. I'm hoping maybe like 2.8, 2.9, but we'll see. So I'm going to throw this on the rack, boot it up, make sure it works fine, but then we'll see it in the computer and start doing some overclocking. So we're in the computer now. I have my interface up. You can see it's been mining for a little bit. And I'm currently running the 2450 gigahash T-Swift overclock. What I'm looking to do is install this guy here. This is the PBFarmer. overclock that allows you to like pick individual voltages and everything, which is kind of what will work best for me now because I'm limited by the T-Swift overclock, believing I have a 2,000 watt PSU on it now for the KS2. So you'll go a link down below for this, but essentially you'll go to the releases and then you'll find the most recent release and then find your specific model, you know, whether at whatever one you have. In this case, I downloaded the KS2 one, and well, I already downloaded it. So essentially all you got to do then is go on over to your dashboard here, firmware upgrade. We're going to do select firmware. And wherever you downloaded it to, you know, that's where you're going to be looking for. Again, all the IceRiver say fake path, it's completely fine. And then just press update. And once this is done, we'll want to reboot. All right, it's restarting now. So we'll wait for that to reload. All right, so when you first install the PBFarmers, you'll actually be greeted by this, which you have to accept. Just you know, a waiver essentially. We're gonna accept. And you can see that now in my dashboard I have IceRiver plus PBFarmer GUI here, and yeah, we're gonna wait for this to boot up. It's gonna take a little while here, so we'll just keep waiting. You'll notice that PBFarmer has a lot of information, that more than what's typically in here. It looks like it automatically changes all your stuff here to his wallet address, so you have to change that back. But definitely a lot of information that isn't in either the stock firmware or the T-Swift firmware, which is really, really nice to see. Once this gets going, we'll see more. I do have to change all this to my own address. I will get doing that, and then we'll be right back. All right, so while we wait for the software on the computer to get up to date, and get a couple minutes of readings at the base thing, I did want to come in here and check our power draw. So as you can see, this is our voltage and our amp. So multiply those together, you get the wattage. So again, as we start overclocking this, you're gonna want to constantly be checking your power draw to make sure you're not exceeding your PSU wattage. Now, again, I have an upgraded PSU, so I can go higher than the stock PSU, which is 2,000 watts. I should be able to get close to 2,400 here. So with our current voltage and amperage, we're right around 1,350 watts currently. So a little higher than stock. I'm going to guess some of that's because of the inefficiency of this PSU, since it's underpowered at the moment, or not drawing enough power to be at its maximum efficiency. But 1,350 is where we're at. So, you know, we got about 1,000 watts of room here. So we're going to, you know, keep checking on this after we make some changes over in the computer. So we're going to hop back over to the computer and get to overclocking this. All right, so we're back in the computer here. You can see it's been over 5 minutes since we booted. You can see that all the graphs are starting to fill in. Honestly, really nice stuff. I really love all this information. Again, it's not as necessary for T-Swift's overclocks just because you can't fiddle with them at all. Like it's a set it and forget it type thing. But honestly, really nice, and like you can change, you know, information here. Just board 1, just board 2. Like this is pretty awesome. I really, really like it. All boards. It's just a giant mess. So lots of cool stuff there. You can see where we're currently at. See where my needs, chip temps are looking good. nothing too crazy. So in this firmware, obviously not everything's the same. Like we got all this crazy information. But also under mining settings, there's some changes. And this is where you're going to do all your overclocking. So there's now this new section here that you have to, again, say I understand. And now you have this information. So this is your clock offset and voltage offset. So I'm trying to remember what the T-Swift overclock clocks were. I'm going to have to look those up real quick. But I think that's where I'm going to start because I know those work. So I'll be right back once I get there. So I ended up, I forgot that my T-Swift overclock to refer as if it was a KS1, two KS1s, and obviously pull too much power. So I can't use them. So I kind of use them as a guess of where to start. So you can see in my prior video here, I was using like a voltage of, 51 megahertz and a clock of 1325. Now, again, that would pull 2700 watts, which I can't do on this PSU. So to start off, I'm just bumping up my clock to 1000 megahertz and my voltage up to 490 millivolts. Again, that's the one that'll directly affect the PSU pull the most. So we'll see what that does. Not really 100% sure what's going to happen. But, we'll find out here shortly. I already saved these, so you can go back to the dashboard. It should have updated a little bit. Yep, so my chip temps are already climbing in the last minute here since I implemented those. Looks like my chip clocks, yep, those are moving up pretty significantly. Chip voltages, yeah, everything's bumping up. So we'll see what this does to everything. Go from there. So it has been a few minutes, as you can see, and our hash rate is increasing. We're now at 2355. Not sure if it's topped out yet. We'll give it some more time. I did check the wattage. Right now we're pulling about 1600 watts. So still less than the T-Swift 2.45 gigahash overclock. We haven't hit that 2450 gigahash yet. So nothing too surprising yet. We're going to just keep on pushing it and see where we end up. It's still increasing in hash rate. We see another about 125 gigahash increase here. So it's probably still not leveled out. But I think it's been long enough. It's been 15 minutes that we can say that it's at least stable. I set our clock at 1000 and set our millivolts at 490. None of the chips are near that 490. The closest is like 485. So it's not even pulling all the power I've allocated to it, which clearly means we can either up the voltage or up the chip clock so that these voltages become more into play. You probably always want to give it more power than it needs for the hash rate. At least that's what I prefer to do for stability. Like if we bump this up a ton and say that at that new megahertz it needs more than 490, either you'll start throttling a little bit, not thermal throttling, this is clock throttling, or you'll end up with instability as things start to crash and the clocks just are not able to be withstood at the 490. So I think it's always better to up your millivolts just in case. Again, we can't go too high because we will pull too much for our PSU, but right now we're only at like I said, 1650 watts, so still got a ton of headroom on this PSU. So we're gonna hop on over here. I'm gonna say we're gonna bump this up to, let's do some quick math here. So we increased our clocks 125, and we increased, but how much of a increase did that cause? Looked like we were hovering around. Let's see. It seems like we're seeing a. I wonder if there's like a all. Not really. I guess summary is kind of the best. So it looks like we were averaging somewhere down in the 465-ish range. If I had to guess, average, maybe a little closer to 470, and now we're averaging pretty much right around 480. So that increased about 10 millivolts in draw, going up 125. So if I do that again, say we do one, or that would be 250. We'll want to do. We didn't need 10 last time, so we'll just do 20. What would that do? 20. Maybe 25. We'll do 25, so that'll get us to 500 millivolts flat. Nah, I'm not feeling it. Let's do 20, just to be safe, because we overgave it last time, and I'll be honest, I'd rather not. I don't know where exactly that point is where I'm gonna pull more than the PSU, so I'd rather bring up the voltage a little less. So let's do a little save here. And see what we're doing. Alright, we lost some. Again, I assume that's just the fluctuation at what we were at. So we'll give this a few more minutes until it has, really settled in at this new amount. Been a few more minutes. You can see that those overclocks have finally registered on our hash rate, on our summary. We are moving up. So it looks like with the prior setting, it's kind of plateaued in that 2,350 plus range, and now we're moving up into at least 2,600 or more. So we've officially surpassed the T-Swift overclocks for at least the November batch that I have. Again, the KS2 overclocks, the max I could ever get with T-Swifts was about 2,450. So we have passed that. Looking at all our temps, you can see they've stabilized here. Right around, our highest ones are right around 80. Our chip clocks have stabilized, obviously. Those are pretty straightforward. And our voltages have stabilized as well, so you can see the slight uptick due to that additional amount. And you'll see that we still are very much below the, I think 495 is what I set as the maximum to allow voltage to be drawn. So we're still, from a overclock perspective, allowing the program to pull more wattage than it actually needs for the current clock rates. I did check the wattage at the wall. Right now we're just shy of 1900, which would be really starting to push it on a KS2 PSU, since those were rated for 2000. And mine is rated for 2500, has an actual consistent output of 2400. So we're going to keep on pushing this and see where we end up. Again, I'm just trying to get the max hash rate I can out of this PSU. So I'm thinking we'll do 25. Because that'll move this to 500 millivolts, which is, still less than what we were doing with the KS1 overclocks. Again, we won't be able to reach these because this was pulling 2700 watts. So, but you know, we'll be down at least 10 megahertz from that. And I'm thinking we'll do. Let's do. So we're not increasing the voltage that much. So I don't want to push it as much. Again, these were doing 1325. Right now we're at so I know they can do it. My chips. It's just a matter of how much power I'm giving them. Right now we're at, what is that, 1,125. So we're about 200 megahertz off from our max ever. We'll do 300 for now. We'll see where that falls. Again, I'd rather the voltage offset be able to handle the clock offset rather than the clock offset get limited by the voltage. So we'll see where this gets us. It'll take a little while for it to all update in here. So once it's updated, we'll be right back. So it's been quite a few more minutes. Still playing with things. You can see I upped our clock speeds a little more, but oddly, our voltage actually went down during that. So I think the chips might be getting starved a little bit of power. And you can kind of see that here because our hash rate really hasn't gone anywhere. It seems to have stabilized. So I'm going to give one more bump. I checked the PSU, and right now we were at about 2,100 watts. So this is kind of getting close. I'm going to guess if I bump this up to 30, that's probably going to be about the max we can do without blowing up the PSU. So we're going to do that. Again, these are typically basic PSUs are. How do I word this? Basic PSUs, whatever their rated output is actually like not the 80% rule. Like they are designed to output that. So that's why, like on a, an S19 or something, it's going to have a 3,500 watt PSU or whatever, and it's going to take 3,500 watts. Like, it's just how they are designed. They actually are designed to take more. So I think this one technically is designed for 2,500 watt input max. And that's what I've been looking at, and 2,400 watt output max. So really you can actually get above at the wall over the 2,400. I don't want to go much more, obviously. I'm just trying to get right around that 2,400 mark. That's what I'm getting at. I'm curious with changing that voltage if it is going to bump up here, or maybe it won't. I'm not really sure what to expect here. Again, I was very surprised it dropped with that last millivolt change, megahertz change. So if it doesn't go up, then I guess that isn't the current issue. I mean, it might actually be that 1,200 megahertz or 1,225 megahertz is actually more efficient at the same voltage than 1,175. I mean, so at this higher section here, where everything's up a little bit, was when it was at 1,175. So it's possible that at 1,225, it just doesn't need as much power, which is also a possibility. So we'll see here what it does. Really don't know what to expect. So far, it's not really changing anything here, but it does typically take 5 minutes. So we'll give it a little more time. We have hit that 275 mark though, so that's nice. So again, we're seeing about 300 gigahash more than the T-Swift November batch KS2 overclock at this point. Yes, I am using more power. I mean, that's why the November batch couldn't overclock as well, because you needed a bigger PSU than what comes with the unit. So, but yeah, hopefully we'll dial in an efficient number here. Yeah, I'm seeing no change in the voltages, so I think just at this, so we weren't being limited by the voltage is what I'm getting at. So at 12.225 or 12.25, it's just need the power. So I think what I'm going to do, we're going to drop this back down to 25, and we'll up this to 375. Let's do that and see what happens. Which should move us to 1250 clock speed, which is about 75 megahertz less than what we were doing with the, our Frankenbeast mode. Wow, the voltage is dropping again. It's really interesting, guys. I'm very surprised. We'll sit here and wait and see what happens, if that holds up long term. I'm also going to go check on the PDU real quick to see what we're doing on that side. It's possible this is misreporting. Alright, so got back from checking the PDU. You can see that, it has stepped up here in our clock speed. Also in our temps. Voltages did not, though. They actually dropped even a little subtly more. So I think we're just, and I confirmed that on the PDU, the wattage hasn't really changed. So I think right now we're kind of at a point where it's like finding its sweet spot efficiency-wise. I'm going to assume at some point, if I keep raising this megahertz clock speed, that we will start seeing a voltage increase again. But yeah, it seems like right now for my unit, the sweet spot's somewhere in this 1250 range. So we're gonna keep going with this. I guess we'll do 400. What would 400 put us at? 400 would put us at 1275, so almost 50 megahertz off of what we were doing, which is rather interesting. So we'll do that and see what happens. Make sure we're not pulling too much power. Again, I do fully expect us to fall out of the efficient zone here shortly, as we really start to push what these chips can do. But yeah, right now it seems like no matter, for at least mine, once I hit that 1175 megahertz through 1250 megahertz, so a range of 75 megahertz, I haven't actually changed the power draw at all. It's been very, very stagnant. So, will I let that sit here? I am going to go check the PDU again, now that we've raised our clocks, 1275. Yeah, the voltage is going down again. At least initially. We'll see what it's actually doing at the PDU. So it's been a few more minutes. You can see I've tried a few different things. So when I first tried this 1275, we saw a voltage drop actually. And then I changed things around thinking, oh, okay, I'll move it back down to 1250 and see if we can find more efficient. And I actually had a huge drop in hash rate. So I started to think maybe I am starving it, and just how their firmware, not necessarily PBFarmer, but IceRiver has designed this, is that even though your clocks are set at something, that essentially, if they're not receiving enough power, they'll just underperform, so to speak. Um, and maybe it has more errors. I'm not really sure, and that's why we're seeing this. But so what I did is I moved it back up to 1275, and I jumped the power a whole nother step. So we're at 35 millivolts offset now, which actually puts us almost on par with the T-Swift KS1 overclocks I was using when it was a Frankenbeast. Again, those were at a little above 51 or 0.5, a little above 500 and like 10, 500 to 515 millivolts, which right now with this setting, I should theoretically be at 510 millivolts. And I wonder if just PBFarmers misreports a little bit or underreports on this, because, until I just did that, I hadn't even seen anything above 500. Now I'm at 501. But maybe it's possible. I mean, I did look at the PDU. With these new settings, I'm right around 2,300 watts. So only a really subtle increase from where I was at like I said, I was at 2190 or something. So only 100 more watts. I'll see what it does hash rate wise. Yeah, I guess they were just kind of being starved a little bit for energy. We'll see what this does in the long term here. Give it like 10 minutes or so. Yep, our hash rate's recovering, so that's good to see. Give it some more time though. Well, guys, we did it. We cleared 3 terahash somehow. I'll get into my thoughts on that in a little bit. I don't know if this is just gonna hold. I mean, it's been 2 5-minute like intervals right now where it has held above that 3 terahash. It's not quite the 3.1 we were getting with our Frankenbeast, but considering this is at right now 2,300 watts versus 2,700 watts, so a 400 watt saving, pretty impressive stuff. I don't know how much fluctuation we're going to have here. Honestly, what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to run this overnight and see, after 24 hours what it's doing. But this is my theory. My theory is I actually have decent silicon. And what do I mean by that? Well, essentially, since the T-Swift overclocks, and again, I was using the KS1, making my KS2 think it was 2 KS1s. I'm going to guess that the T-Swift overclocks are safe overclocks, meaning they make sure there's plenty and plenty of power for the clock speed you're outputting. So, as I was saying, I was at 1325 on the clock with the T-Swift overclocks for the KS1. Right now I'm at 1275, but consuming a ton less power and almost getting the same hash rate. So, and I don't think any of that's inefficiencies due to, I mean, yes, the control board might have a little power draw, but it's going to be minimal, right? I'm still running the same amount of fans off the control boards. The control board probably took maximum, 25, 30 watts. So that was really the only inefficiency in my Frankenbeast, was the fact it had to run 2 control boards. But everything else, didn't really add to inefficiencies. So I think I'm just able to, with the silicone I have, dial in a really, really much more efficient overclock, whereas the T-Swift overclock, like I said, since it's meant to be plug and play, and you just kind of anyone can install it, it's meant to be a safe overclock, right? So my assumption is it was giving a lot of extra voltage to make sure that the clock speeds were achievable. Whereas right now, essentially, I am hitting almost the same clock speeds with a lot less voltage. So like I did confirm these numbers, so these numbers are accurate. I have T-Swift's IceRiver monitor tool up on my other desktop here on the local LAN, um, and I can see that these are accurate. So I'm just pulling a lot less power for almost the same clock speed on the chips. So I am going to dial this in a little more, see where that gets us. Again, I do also want to run it overnight, um, make sure this is a stable hash rate. We're consistently getting around this 3 terahash. But overall, real happy with what I'm accomplishing here on, honestly, it's just a 400 watt PSU increase. Again, I just had this PSU sitting around. I don't know where you can find one these days. Probably a few out there. Um, but yeah, overall, real happy with how this is going. And because it is less power, my chips are staying cooler than with the T-Swift overclock, so that's nice too. So you can kind of see here my highest one's at 91, whereas with the T-Swift overclocks, I had 1 or 2 bad chips that probably just need to be repasted that were just a little higher, like 95, something like that. So I'm just gonna, essentially let this run for now at the settings it's at. Make sure nothing crazy. Yeah, man, we're still going up. 3128. Oh my goodness, guys. We actually have made it past what we were doing. That's crazy. That's just crazy, guys. I wonder what. Man, there's just so many things I could try. Uh, all right. Well, anyway, so that's all I got for today on my KS2.